Good afternoon again, everyone who has joined in the last couple of minutes. We are going to get started. Please, Yemi, take us away. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Francis. I hope everyone can hear me. Before we get started, we have a few items of housekeeping that we have to deal with. I can see that everyone's cameras are off, and so that's the first one, which is good. And everyone should kindly keep their microphone off as well. For the recording of this video, or rather this webinar, please feel free to check out the USAID website when it becomes available on the site. If anyone's microphone is on, I'd kindly ask for you to switch it off at this juncture. Good afternoon. My name is Olayemi Aganga. I am the Secretary of the Natural Products Association of Botswana, and also I'm the co-founder of a company of my own in the food sector and space. For these introductions that I'm about to make, also I would say please feel free if you want to read further in terms of our bio. But in terms of what I'm doing here today, I'm representing the Natural Products Association of Botswana, and we're very happy to be participating in this webinar alongside USAID and NANCI. The way this webinar came about is as a brainchild of USAID and NANCI, NANCI being the Namibian Cosmetics Association in the natural and indigenous space. They invited the NPAB along, and we felt that this was a worthwhile webinar for yourselves and our members as well. Basically, this is a webinar in terms of the organic certification of natural plant ingredients. Now, why is that important? You will find that some of your buyers out there, whether they are ingredient buyers or buyers of products, seek organic certification. Some end users of these products also seek organic certification, as it is a standard that is a high standard that demarcates certain issues in terms of how products are grown and treated in terms of production. This is also important in finished goods, but it's particularly important when it comes to the ingredient side of things. So we decided to host this webinar where you can get a first-hand view from people who have been in this space, who will talk to you today about the challenges and, more importantly, the opportunities in the space when it comes to natural ingredients. So with that said, before I hand over the microphone to Dagmar, I'm just going to introduce you to some of the speakers. So today you're going to hear from, I'm going to go over the agenda very briefly. You're going to basically be hearing opening remarks from myself, an introduction and guest speakers, which I'm going to do briefly, preparing for and undergoing an organic certification audit, what you wish you knew when you started the organic certification process, so those practical insights, the business case for organic certification, you're going to hear that as well. Only then will we be going into question and answers, so I would ask for people to reserve their questions till the end of that presentation. And then after that, we will deal with updates and developments from the African Trade Platform and also closing remarks. With that said, I'm now going to introduce you to the speakers here today. So firstly, we have Dagmar Honsbeen. She's the acting Secretary General of the Namibian Network of the Cosmetics Industry, NANCI. Dr. Honsbeen is a greatly experienced individual from the agricultural sector, where she chaired or is the acting chairperson of the board of directors at the Agricultural Bank of Namibia. She has great and vast experience in the natural and indigenous sector. And if you want to find out more, her bio is there as well. She's going to be moderating the proceedings today. We also have speaking here today other speakers, namely we have next Daniel Kotze. Daniel is the country manager at EcoCert. EcoCert are the preeminent experts when it comes to organic certification, and also a body that essentially helps with the certification process. Daniel has been with the company since 2015, and as you can see, is well experienced in plant pathology, holding an MSc from Stellenbosch University. Next, we have Tris Leite. Tris is a director at DLG Naturals, is someone who's vastly experienced in the field of natural and indigenous plant resource processing, particularly when it comes to natural cosmetic oils, and also the food side with DLG Naturals. DLG are themselves organically certified, so he'll be able to talk to you about that process. This is something that he's vastly experienced in, and he's a graduate from the University of Wisconsin. Next, we have Gerrit Strijf. Gerrit is one of the parties who is also a founder at Matabeleng Milling, a company that is doing quite well in the natural and indigenous industry here in Botswana, or at least blazing a trail when it comes to that side. He's also the country representative for USA Trade Hub. Gerrit has experience in the agribusiness industry well over 35 years, although he doesn't look a day over 18. He, as I'd stated, currently runs his own business, which is Matabeleng Milling, and they deal in exports of Devil's Claw. They themselves also have experience in organic certification, and so he'll get into that part as well. So, I believe those are the presenters for you here today. At this stage, I would like to hand over to the moderator, who is Dr. Dagmar Honsbeen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yemi, for the great introduction and welcoming us to the event. Welcome everybody from rainy Namibia, and also the good introductions by Yemi to set the scene for why we have decided that we want this webinar. And with the introduction of the guest speakers that Yemi has also kindly done in the meantime, I would like to invite now Daniel Kotze from EcoCert South Africa as the country manager and also overlooking the organic certification processes from EcoCert, as I remember, in Namibia and also in Botswana, to give us insights in preparing for and undergoing the organic certification audit. Prior to this, we have realized that a number of you have asked certain questions. Why to be organic certified? What is the benefit? Who asks for it? And who cares for it in the end? So Daniel, it's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dagmar. I appreciate it, and it's a great opportunity for me to be able to speak as well. What I'm going to do today is just give you a broad overview of what organic certification is about, and then also specifically looking, because I know a lot of you guys are interested in specifically wild harvested products and cosmetic products. I'm going to give you an idea of what type of certifications are available and what's the process of going through this certification. So I am situated in Somerset West, close to Cape Town. EcoCert's head office is in Le Jourdain in the southern part of France. So we've got several subsidiaries, just to give you an idea of our subsidiary and the services that we offer. So we've been around for about 20 years, the main company being around for more than 30 years now. And we operate in a variety of sectors. So our main sector being organic food, which is farming, processing, exporting, and you'll see there's a lot of different standards. Unfortunately, because we are situated outside of the big organic countries within the European Union or America or Japan, we need to have a lot of certification. So we need to, if you want to export an organic product to the EU, you need EU organic certification. If you want to export organic produce to America, you will need NOP certification. If you want to export product to Japan, you need Japanese organic certification. So, and whereas all of these countries, they basically have equivalency agreements. So if you are farming in the US and you want to export a product to the EU, you can just comply to the US standard, and the same for the EU. So it leaves us in a bit of a bad space where a lot of times, if you want to, export to a lot of different countries, you have to be certified for a lot of different standards, and each one has the very specific special requirements. So, I mean, we've got companies certified that's got sometimes 6 or 7 different standards, and then it's not only organic, it's Rainforest Alliance and Fair Trade and a couple of others. So it really becomes a very complex process, and you need to be sure that you understand your the quality aspects and the compliance aspects of that. And normally in this case, if you have so many standards, you really need not only a dedicated staff member, but I mean a dedicated team really for compliance. Other than organic food, the other sector that I'm quite excited about is cosmetics, and there's a really big demand for that in Southern Africa at the moment. We've really struggled with being able to deliver a proper service due to the unavailability of qualified auditors, and this changed end of last year when we managed to qualify 2 local auditors in South Africa to be able to offer this standard as well. But I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And then also we do the attestation of inputs in organic agriculture. So if someone wants to attest a fertilizer or pest control product for use in organic agriculture, we're able to check the compliance for those products, and they can also use our logo. Then there's standards that's let's say a combination of social aspects and also sustainable aspects like organic agriculture. And these ones are UBT and Rainforest Alliance, which we also offer. So in terms of certification, in terms of your inputs that you can use, they're not as strict as organic. So there's still certain, for instance, herbicides, registered herbicides and pesticides that you can use, but they are quite strict on your social compliance, and also a really big part of the standard is based on conservation and your conservation efforts on your farm. And then Fair for Life being mostly focused on the social side. So this is a fair trade standard. Then just to give you guys also just an idea of the role players in the sector. So there's quite a number of certification bodies, of which EcoCert is the largest certification body in our sub-region. The main reason for that also being because we are the only one with a critical site, meaning that we can issue certificates from South Africa. We don't need to send off certificates to the EU or reports to the EU and have the certificate issued from there. So we have a quite a nice shorter turnaround time than most of the other certification bodies. Also, recently, I think 2 weeks ago, Lacon also made a statement to say that they will no longer be offering the service. So most of the Lacon clients will also have to move to other certification bodies. What is certification about, and how do you get certified? So it's really, we can break it down into 5 simple steps. So the first one being that you will apply for certification. You can do this via contacting our company, or you can actually go to our website and do an online quotation request. Once we receive the request, we create a quotation. Often, because the projects can be quite complex, we would ask you for more information to make sure that we can do an accurate quotation. The quotation then acts as your contract. So the moment you sign the quotation, it means that you are now a contracted client committed to organic certification. Then we start arranging your first audit. And this will mean one of the auditors from EcoCert would visit your site and go through the audit with you. And there's a lot of checks in terms of making sure that you are not you are compliant in terms of the inputs, the specific inputs you're using, if it's farm, if it's wild harvesting, to have interviews with your wild harvesters. But we'll get to the specifics of the audit as well. After the audit is finished, the auditor will write a report, and then this report is sent to the office, where they do a final review of your file. And once if there were any corrections to be made, and you've submitted the corrections, they can issue the certificate, and you are a happy and certified client. So the two major standards that we're looking at in terms of export at the moment is the EU Organic Standard and the NOP, which is the National Organic Program. And this is the standard if you want to export to the US or to Canada. So just looking at the scope in terms of what can we certify under EU, the general rule under EU is that we can certify food products. We can do obviously livestock products, so whether it's plant or animal derived or animal feed. We can do products for beekeeping. And then also with the new EU regulation that's already been published in the EU, and it's probably going to be implemented outside of the EU by latest the end of 2024. We can also now, under this standard, we can also certify all essential oils, so not only the edible oils. So this would mean that if it's, for instance, a simple essential oil, like let's say tea tree oil, you can actually now certify it according to this standard and market it as a cosmetic product. Because previously it would only be food products, so you could certify the essential oil, but you could never market it as a cosmetic product. But now with the new EU standard, that would be possible. What they don't certify is products from hunting and fishing. They don't do pet food yet. That's also going to be included in the new EU regulation. We don't do any cosmetics under the EU. Like I said, that would be for the basic cosmetic products like essential oils.
Sorry, Daniel. We
Yes.
don't see your presentation anymore, but we only see your browser, or something is happening. Is it Teresa with you?
Yeah,
I'm just going to swap it around. Sorry.
No, I think Teresa accidentally took control, so I think you must just reshare. Thanks.
Okay.
Teresa, yeah, sorry for jumping in, but
No problem. Just going to do this. Sorry, I'm just resharing it again.
Thanks, Daniel. Sorry for the
no problem. How's
interruption.
that?
It's good to go. Just go
Okay.
ahead again. Thank you.
Okay, so just in terms of what we can't do for EU, so hunting, fishing, pet food, like I said, that's going to be included in the new EU regulation. Cosmetics, there's a separate standard for cosmetic products. The basic cosmetic products like essential oils can still be certified with the new EU regulation under this agricultural standard. But for any more complex cosmetic products, you'll be looking at Cosmos certification, which is the cosmetic organic standard. And just a reminder that hydroponics is not included in the scope of the EU organic standard. And there's there's lots of questions around that always, like why it's not necessarily that they see hydroponics as a bad method of farming. In fact, I think most people think it's a sustainable way of farming as well. But for them, I think the main reason is that organic agriculture is seen as based on the relationship between a producer and the soil. And once you exclude the soil from that equation, it really defeats the purpose of having organic certification. Under NOP, the National Organic Program, you can certify any product that's an agricultural product, so it doesn't just need to be food. So even if it's something like wood, I wouldn't understand why people would like to have a certified organic wood. But if you would like to certify that, it's possible. They can't certify any aquaculture, wild animals, or hydroponics. And then just the third one for interest sake that I brought in is the cosmetic organic standard. And like I said, this is for, so you have two different standards. The one is the Cosmos Organic, and then there's also a Cosmos Natural. So if you, and there's certain percentages that you would need to look at when you're applying for Cosmos Organic, you need to buy certified organic raw materials. When you are applying for Cosmos Natural, it doesn't need to be certified organic, but it needs to be natural ingredients that you're using in a product. And then they've got obviously certain conditions in terms of the percentages of the ingredients that you use. And, it's a list of preservatives and additives and processing aids that you're allowed to use for the standard. The types of operators that we can divide the clients into is farmers. So these are people doing other crops or livestock or beekeeping. You have processors, whether it's on farm. Some people have very basic facilities where they're doing, even when they're just doing drying of products, this is seen as on-farm processing. Sometimes there's also a lot more complex processing, which is done in factories, but this will all fall under processors. And then you get the final part of the chain where you have traders, exporters, and importers that also needs to be certified. Then, apart from farmers, if you are doing, and this is also very applicable to a lot of you, when you're doing wild harvesting or collecting, this is a different set of rules that's going to be applicable to you. So we call that either wild harvesting or wild collecting. And then we have a category that's called the grower group. And this is, we can normally refer to that as a co-op. And this would be where you have a large number of small growers. So some of these, we've got grower groups at the moment where we have up to 40,000 small growers in one group. This is also going to change with the new EU regulation where they limit the amount of growers to 2,000. But at the moment, it's really, some of these groups are really large, and each of these small growers might have 1 hectare or half a hectare or 1.5 hectare. And they would all, in this case, each individual farmer would not need to be certified. The group is certified as a whole. And then when a company like EcoCert does the audit, we only have to do an audit of a sample of the total amount. So if it's 1,000, we might visit, 60 or 70 of these producers. Then in terms of the audit, just to give you an idea between what's required and what's the difference between if you are looking at farming a crop or collecting from the wild, how does it differ in terms of what we require for compliance? So in both cases, the most important part is that the area that you want to certify, whether it's a field on your farm or a wild harvesting area, it may not have received any disallowed treatment for 3 years. Okay, and there's for EU, for instance, compared to NOP, there's a difference also in terms of what's allowed and what's not allowed. And so that's really important to know what's been happening in that area that you want to farm or the area that you want to certify as a wild collection area, what's been happening there in the last 3 years. You need to make sure on the farm it's really important because you are, in most cases, you will be using some inputs, whether it's pest control products or fertilizing or soil conditioning products. It's really important that you make sure that these products are compliant. And this is also something you can do in conjunction with your certification body to ensure that you don't make a mistake in terms of what you use, because this is probably one of the most crucial points. If you make a mistake and you use a disallowed product, this is going to mean that you will be placed back into conversion. So you will have to restart your 3-year conversion before you can harvest any organic produce again. And you obviously want to avoid that. Also, in terms of making sure that your farming practices are sustainable, we really want to not just go to the farm and say, okay, all of the inputs that you use are compliant. Before you actually look at buying in products from outside, we want to make sure that the practices you are performing on the farm is sustainable practices. There's no soil erosion. You are actually protecting your indigenous species and your larger species that also would be predators for the smaller pests. These are all really that you're not causing soil compaction. These would all be really important points for the auditor to check. You need to make sure you keep record of everything that you do. So not only in terms of inputs, but also if you are doing weeding on your farm, if you're doing planting and harvesting, to make sure that you keep proper records. And then there'll also be an harvest balance. So during your audit, the auditor will also check, okay, from which fields, what was the yield estimates, and then eventually also check what was the actual yield to make sure that it makes sense. And then lastly, for wild collection, like I said, it's the same 3 years where you can't have any disallowed substances on that area. Very important, and a lot of people miss this, is that the auditor needs to have a very clearly defined border to the area that the operator wants to certify. So if we don't have clear borders and people tell us, they generally harvest in this area, it's very difficult for us to determine, because the auditor needs to determine whether we can comfortably say that this area did not have a disallowed treatment in the last 3 years. So it needs to be a very definite border, whether it's a fence or a river or a mountain, where we can say, okay, this is the area that we certify. And this is also what we do during our interviews with the harvesters, to make sure that they understand where the borders of the collection area is. You would also need to submit a sustainable harvesting plan. And this is particularly applicable when you are working with indigenous species. Obviously, if you are harvesting something like rosehip in Lesotho, which is an invasive species, this would not be applicable. Important is the training of your collectors or your harvesters, to make sure you have a set list of who is trained as harvesters, who are contracted, because this is also the list that the certification body will use to see whether the products were actually allowed to be harvested or not. And then, like I mentioned, there will also be some interviews during this audit for wild collection. So during your farming audit, the auditor might perform some interviews with some of your farm workers, but it's not always part of your inspection. But during wild collection, it's actually part of the inspection assignment. So the auditor has to do, with a certain amount of collectors, they have to do interviews to make sure they understand the harvesting plan, how to harvest sustainably, where the borders are, and to make sure they understand a little bit about organic certification and what's the difference between organic and conventional. And that's it. Thank you very much. It was a very short overview. but you're welcome to contact me or ask questions if you have specific technical questions. And then we can also, because each of these standards and each of the activities, they've got lots and lots of compliance technical sheets. So we can also send you a lot more information if you want to learn more about any of these activities or about certification. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for this very insightful presentation. We said we will reserve some questions, and I have already for myself some questions lined up. So in case people are a bit hesitant to ask them, in order to make this presentation very fruitful and to explore a bit more on organic certifications. May I then move to Tris, please, so that you give us the ups and downs of organic certification and your experience. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you, Dagmar. Let's see if I can get this screen rolling here. Okay, there we go here. Okay, here we go. Can you hear me?
Thank you, Tris. We can hear you, but I see your bandwidth is not supporting you. So if it is more useful on your side, then you can maybe just switch off your camera and just switch on your presentation.
All right, bear with me just a second here. Okay, that's out of there. We switch off the camera here. Try this again. How is it now, Dagmar?
Okay, we don't see a presentation yet, but we hear you loud and clear.
Nothing?
Francis, can you see a presentation on your side?
Not yet.
All right, let me get back here and see if I can.
No worries.
You see that?
Let me get now.
Now you're
Not let someone
Oh,
else.
Pingana, I think you took control.
Can you see it now?
Okay, now we can see you.
You good?
Thank you. Now just head away. Thanks, Tris.
How is it now? Can you see that first slide?
Yes, we can see the first slide. If you can just
Okay,
switch
excellent. Thank you.
to presentation mode.
Okay, so you can see the first slide, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thanks for the introduction. Yemi, getting back to a point that Yemi made, certification, organic certification is definitely a high standard to meet, and not only meet, but to maintain on an annual basis. So we had some questions when we started the process back in 2018, what we wish we knew, and when we started the process. We had a number of questions. First, do we want organic certification? What did it mean? Would it benefit us in some way? We weren't too sure about that. Who does the certification? We weren't aware of EcoCert at that point. How much is it going to cost? We had no idea what to budget for it, and what did we have to do to gain certification. So we went and started looking up some of the material, doing a little research. And we discovered that, as Daniel said, there's a number of different certifications, not just organic. And also, as Daniel pointed out, there's different types of organic certification, EOS, NLP, JS, and different companies doing the certification. So we were sort of up in the air in terms of how to deal with that. And what we wish we had then was someone who could advise us, something like this webinar. Which we would have found very useful. Yeah.
Sure, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
I think you are moving through the slides, but on our end, we're only seeing the first one. And I think it's because it's not in the slideshow mode for us. Sorry, I'm really breaking your
Okay.
train of thought. And then if I could ask Mpungana Dex, if you could please put your video off. Thank you.
Dagmar, what do you see now on the screen?
Nothing yet.
Okay, let's see.
If I could make a suggestion.
Can you
Please,
see that?
Juliet, do you have the presentation on your site so that somebody can help Tris go through the presentation?
I do not have the presentation.
There you go.
Can you see that slide? No? I'm sharing a screen here.
Okay, we see your screen, but we don't see the, okay, now just move to slide presentation, please.
Yes. What do you see now?
Yes, just go to slide presentation mode. Yes, there we go. Just
Do you see,
push on.
do we see the next slide? Do we want organic certification?
There we go.
Tris, they're seeing my screen, not yours. So you're going to have to prompt me to move the screen. I'm on the second one at the moment. Can you see it?
Yes, well, I have my side. Yeah, should I unshare? I guess I'll have to unshare. Just a moment. I'll
Yeah,
unshare.
sorry. Technology is not playing on our side.
Okay, I'll go back to mine. All right, slide 2. Do we want organic certification? And as I had noted, we weren't too sure if we wanted organic certification. We didn't know who did it. We didn't know how much it would cost. We didn't know what we would have to do. And third slide, please. We ended up having to do a lot of research to answer these questions. And as Daniel had pointed out, there's different types of certifications. There's even different types of organic certifications. So we had to kind of decide how we were going to approach that. And we also discovered there are different companies doing the certifications. Next slide, please. What we wished for then was someone to advise us. And something like this webinar would have been very useful had it been available then. And we found EcoCert. We weren't too sure about EcoCert. We knew it was a certification body, but next slide, please. Who is EcoCert? Who are the people there? And what do they do? We had no idea about their jobs. We had no idea who they were. We didn't know if we could work with them. It was just kind of a, let's keep asking questions. And to our great delight and pleasure, next slide, please, we discovered that the EcoCert people were very friendly, very willing to help. We could work with them on a first name basis. Just all around nice people, very capable, very competent. They wanted us to get certified. They were going to help us get there. Okay, next slide, please. However, we didn't know much about the forms, what kind of documents we would have to fill in, what kind of information was going to be requested. We knew there would be some paperwork involved. Next slide, please. We just didn't know how much paperwork, and there's quite a bit of it. I mean, Daniel in his presentation said, you know, well, we set up the contract, we signed an auditor, we set up an audit time and place, and then we get the audit done, and then we write a report, and voila, you got certified. He makes it sound very easy. It's not. We not only had to do an awful lot of paperwork for the audit itself, but next slide, please. We discovered that the auditor in our first round, her name was Lauren, a very capable, friendly person to work with. She wanted to look at a lot of documents that we had in our files, documents that pertain to invoices, logs, procedures, anything that she could look at that would give her an idea of what we're doing, how we're doing it, how well we're doing it, and if we're meeting standards. Next slide, please. One thing we wish we knew was how long it was going to take. We had absolutely no idea what the time commitment was on it. But we did discover, next slide, please, that we were going to be doing some traveling. In the first round, we did Chedibe and Machinang, Gweta and Zoroha, and also our facility at Habani. Well, anybody who's familiar with Botswana knows there's a little bit of driving involved between Habani and Gweta and points in between. So that meant there were going to be 4 of us on the audit and traveling. We needed to have a car. We needed to have enough space for the people and our baggage because we were going to be staying overnight at various places and we were going to have to eat. Now it wasn't only just a time concern here, it was also a budget. These were expenses that we were going to incur. They were not expenses that were on the initial contract for what EcoCert was responsible for. Next slide, please. One thing we learned too, that the EcoCert standards and the auditors are very, very detail oriented. They want to look at everything. They need to know everything. They're going to ask a lot of questions. And it all starts at, next slide, please, getting to some of those sites. And we are certified in wild harvest as well as processing. So Lauren and our team went out to various sites, looked at the land. Daniel said, you know, has fertilizers been used? What else is around there that we got to be concerned with? So the auditor wanted to look at the sites firsthand, all of them. She also wanted to observe our training. Our harvesters, our organically certified harvesters have to go through training in order to be certified. And so Lauren had to watch the training process as well. Next slide, please. She interviewed harvesters. She interviewed in the background, this particular slide, you can see in the background a group of villagers who are undergoing their first training session for organic certification. And in the foreground, Lauren is interviewing a group of harvesters who have already been trained for organic certification. And she's asking them questions about the training. What did they learn? What did they know? Next slide, please. Lauren and our team lead, Kobama, there are looking at a group of villagers there who are working on marula pips. So she's studying the process of harvesting and what the steps are that are involved there. Next slide, please. And here are some dried marula pips that the harvesters get for us. And those are cleaned. And next slide, please. Placed in bags that are labeled, and here you see the auditor, Lauren, looking at the bags, looking at the tags on them, making sure all the information is on each bag. And next, those bags of dried marula pips are going to go someplace specifically to be stored. They will be stored in the villages, and eventually we will get to the villages and pick them up. But transport is also part of this survey of the audit they're doing. How do we transport these pips? There are standards for transport. Next slide, please. Even if the bags of pips are transported by donkey cart, there are standards for that donkey cart that we have to be aware of. From the villages, we take it down to our processing facility in Habani. Next slide, please. Here you're going to see Hangar Ruviana, our general manager, with some organically certified marula oil that's going to be shipped out. If we go from the previous slide with the donkey cart transport to this one, you will probably surmise there's a whole bunch of steps in there that are missing and that we don't show in the slides. The auditor, the EcoCert auditor, went through every one of those steps, looked at all the machinery, interviewed all the factory staff, looked at all the processes that were involved in getting that marula oil. Next slide, please. as Daniel had noted, there are standards, there are things that they have to be audited. We learned there are procedures, there are processes that the auditor is going to look at. They're going to visit places where the wild harvest and some of the wild harvest and collection is taking place, going to interview people, and they're going to look at our paperwork as well. Next slide, please. If I can get there. Finally, as Daniel mentioned, there is an inspection report. Now, I don't know, you can't see that. Maybe you can see that red arrow up in the upper corner there. Page 1 of 4, it said. The inspection findings that were received on our first audit were 4 pages long. They were findings of things we did wrong or weren't doing. In other words, we failed. But that is not bad, because and Daniel alluded to it, they're going to give us this report and tell us how we go about correcting these mistakes, these errors. We had to submit another report saying this is how we do it, or what the problem is, this is how we've solved it, this is what you're going to see on the next audit, whatever is necessary for them to assess to make sure that our procedures are correct and in place. Once all that's done, an EcoCert comes back and says, your report looks good to us. Next slide, please. Here is your certificate. Yay, we finally got it. It took a lot of work to get there. It took a lot of staff time and perseverance and dedication and commitment to getting the certificate, but EcoCert helps all the way along. Good people there. They're very nice to work with. You got questions, talk to Daniel, talk to the team in South Africa. Good folks to work with. Finally, one last slide, please. Next few months, we're due for our 5th audit. We know we will fail. We failed everyone so far, but this is not a bad thing. Again, you find places where you can improve your processing and make sure that you can stay up to date with even some of the new rules and regs that come along. It's worth the effort, and we know we will pass one more time. We just have to spend time and effort and energy to make sure it works. We are certified for marula oil, organic marula pulp, and organic marula seed cake, which is used for animal feed. Okay, that's it for me. I think I will pass it along to, who is there? Garrett, I guess you're next on the list, huh? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tris, for that very lively presentation and making it really real. So we are moving now also from marula, we are moving to Devil's Claw. And Garrett told us in preparing for this webinar that he used to be organic certified. So there is also the question that you have already mentioned in the beginning, Tris. What does it cost and for whom is it actually? So Gerrit, just move ahead, please.
Thank you very much. I think I was smart because I'm not moving my own slides like Tris was trying to do. So yeah, I'm basically talking about the business case for organic certification. And really, at the end of the day, why are we doing all this stuff? Yes, it's nice to be organically certified, but we are all in business. So somewhere you need to see extra income, extra market, etc. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, I've got the presentation outline. I'll really run through it pretty fast. Along the way, you'll see pictures with harvesters, with Devil's Claw. Yeah, just to make the presentation a little bit lively. Just a quick one on understanding organic certification, then really the business case. And that's the real, let's say, bulk of the presentation. But then also a brief risk analysis. Question and discussion is basically for all of us, for all the 3 presentations. So please let me see the next slide. Yeah, what does organic production really mean? I mean, let's talk about Devil's Claw. Devil's Claw, when it's taken out of the ground, it's in the Kalahari, nobody grows cotton there. You are basically 100% sure it's organically certified. You are 100% sure it's organic, but it doesn't mean it's certified. Organic really means it is grown on soil with no prohibited practices, substances used. at least for 3 years. I think Dan already mentioned that. All I'm trying to say is that there is a big difference between an organic product and an organic certified product. Organically certified product is where you get the sticker from EcoCert. So people might often ask you, are you producing organic? Yes, but organically certified, you really need to invest in getting your product certified. And that means developing a management plan. You need to do the audit by the certifying body, and they need to kind of approve you. Mind you, even if you are organically certified, and I will give you a practical example, it doesn't mean that the company you are supplying will actually pay you for organically certified. But we'll come to that later in the presentation. Next. Yeah, the business case. Like I said, we are here for business. It's always nice to talk, but when we do certification, number one, it's not cheap. Tris mentioned that he started it without having a proper ID. I think we, as Matabeleland Milling, we had a pretty good ID. I had worked with EcoCert on some other work before. I contacted them. They gave me a quotation, how much it would cost. They also gave me issues which were my cost, i.e. the cost of lodging of the certifier, the transport in country. But of course, that is EcoCert cost. But also as a company, you must be prepared to know that you're paying extra. And that could be in forms of administration. Devil's Claw, the moment you certify, you need actual contract with each and every of your harvesters. You need full traceability of each and every bag, where it comes from, and after you've cleaned it, where it goes to. In the factory, you might have to make adjustments. I remember in our factory, we had to demarcate a specific area where only the organic certified product would stay. So that is the cost. And of course, cost is one part. We also want to look, what do we get extra? Do we get a premium price? Do we get a bigger market? From my point, I did not start looking for organically certified Devil's Claw until I had a confirmed order for 10,000 kg with a price premium of €1.50. In other words, my potential gain was 15,000 euros. And then I looked at the cost. I think the EcoCert cost were about $3,000 or $4,000. I thought my own cost would be another 2 or 3. So I was looking, okay, I'm going to make 15,000 and I'm going to spend about 7. How does that look on paper? It looks nice. But like I said, that's how I did it. But you can also do it if you feel your market will be much bigger in case you actually organically certify. Or, yeah, like I said, you get a premium price. So there could be many reasons, but all I'm trying to say is that you need to have at least an idea what's it going to cost. EcoCert will be quite detailed in what they will charge you and also what costs you have to take care of in terms of hosting them. But also you need to look internally, what does it cost me to make adjustments in my factory and all the other ones. The bottom line, and that's I can't stress enough, you must have a business case. And the business case has to be about what do I gain and what do I pay? And also, it might not be that you immediately make money like I thought I was going to do, but at least you can see there's real extra markets coming up and it makes sense. But if you can't see the business case, yeah, then I wouldn't get into it. Next slide. The other part of the business case is it technically feasible to attain certification? And that you need to be very clear about. In other words, there's a couple of steps, and I think already previous Daniel already mentioned it. I think even Tris mentioned some of the areas, but we're talking here Devil's Claw. We are talking about a VELD product. You must have absence of non-allowed substances. I already mentioned Kalahari. There's no commercial farming there, but you must prove it. In other words, in our case, we had to get a letter from the Ministry of Agriculture or from another government agency that no chemicals were used in the areas. We also had to write a management plan clearly demarcating which areas we were certifying. In our case, we certified 4 villages, which we hoped would give us the 10 tons we had to order for. We did well because eventually we got 16 tons out of these 4 villages. We also gave our harvesters a price premium so that because of the extra work and extra testing or whatever, they were also kind of encouraged, but that's still a part of the cost. So in other words, for the production areas, can you make the case that the land was used without non-allowed substances for the last 3 years? In our case, we tried Ministry of Agriculture. They said, no, we can't do that. Government sometimes is very hesitant. We actually then we talked to EcoCert, and they said, no, you go to the local chiefs, and if they write a letter, it's still okay. So and I'll come back to that later. If you're working on certification, the certification body is not your enemy. They're not there to make you fail. They actually want you to succeed. So along the way, they are probably your best advisor. But again, you must also be clear, is there a risk of cross-contamination? In other words, if you would have harvest Devil's Claw next to an areas where people are growing cotton, for instance, in Zambia, it would probably be risky. And then you must be very clear on boundaries and buffer zones and maps so that the area you certify are really certified. Dan talked about that as well. We bought all kinds of maps. We certified 4 villages all in one area, and that worked out for us. Next slide. Yeah, then again, the issue about what kind of plants are you actually certifying? In our case, Devil's Claw. It is internationally recognized as Angus citrus. We also then have a whole list of local rules and permit systems on harvesting. We have our harvesters need harvesting permits. They need dealers permits. We need dealer permits, export permits to export. Very important, sustainable harvesting and production practices. We work always very closely with forestry. No harvester gets a harvesting permit unless they receive training from our people, mainly about sustainable harvesting, but also about how they treat the Devil's Claw, especially with regards to how they dry it. Another area that, and again, we solved that by having 4 villages in one area so that there was only organic certified production in our 4 villages. And as we are basically the only company doing Devil's Claw, that could be satisfied. Yeah, the production or the cleaning, the drying methods, very, very important. Like I mentioned, when the Devil's Claw comes out of the ground, you're pretty sure. But then what do they do when they dry it, when they slice it, when they store it? Next slide. Yeah, again, I think I mentioned it and also Dan mentioned it. You need to have a contract with all your harvesters so that they actually sign for it. They know what they're supposed to do. And mind you, one of the villages, I think we had over 200 harvesters. So we maybe it's not so sustainable. We use quite a lot of paper to write contracts. Then again, do you work with intermediaries? In other words, are people transporting for you? In our case, it's all within the company. Then the issue about the training program, the compliance with organic certificate harvesting, yeah, contamination mitigation. I already mentioned that after the Devil's Claw is harvested, it needs to be sliced and dried. And then is it not going to be contaminated by, for instance, putting it next to a bag of fertilizer? Yeah, with written commitment from the harvesters, that's the contracts. And then again, full traceability. And Devil's Claw, we have harvesters, some of them do up to 200 kg per person, and a bag is about 20 kg. So that's fine. But we have other people who do only 5 or 10 kgs. And then sometimes you have 4 different harvesters which end up in one bag. After we receive it in the factory, each bag is cleaned, and then you need to put it back in a bag with a number which is then linked to a particular harvester. So there is full traceability. And that's part of the organic certification. A lot of extra work and also a lot of extra systems. I think the other area, I think Trish mentioned it, issue about transport. You need to make sure that your truck is cleaned when you have transported organic devil's claw, etc. Next. Yeah, like I've already said, so maybe I don't have to repeat this too much, but the key thing is, can you confirm that after it is harvested, there is no contamination after the harvesting and during processing? So that has to do with storage, how they process it, how it is stored in our factory, the shipment procedures. For instance, we had a container. A container normally takes 20 tons of devil's claw. Our container had 10 tons of organic and 10 tons of non-organic. We had to put the demarcation in between plastic sheets, all this kind of stuff. All doable, but again, you need to ask you the question, are you capable of doing this? Next. Yeah, so in other words, the previous slides are really all questions. Am I going to be technically able to do it, to get my certification? And yeah, I think Danny made it sound pretty easy. I think Trish also explained that there could be a lot of hiccups. You then get the certifier to come and visit you. I think ours wasn't 4 pages like Trish, so I think we were slightly better. But still, there were a number of areas which we had to improve. We gave them the remedial actions, and we got the certification. Then we sent our container with the 10 tons of organically certified devil's claw. Before we sent it, we sent the pre-shipment sample. They tested it and they said, that devil's claw of yours is not organic because it's contaminated with a chemical called Voltap. Voltap is used in the wine industry in Cape, where Danny comes from. Nobody uses Voltap in Botswana. But we got this test result from the pre-shipment sample. And then we went through a whole process that, no, this is not possible. We tested it again. We tested it with an independent body. Finally, independent body confirmed that, no, there was no Voltap in our devil's claw. But all I'm trying to say is that even though you can have organically certified product, your eventual client will still test it. And if they find traces of certain chemicals which are not supposed to be there, and basically nothing is supposed to be there in terms of chemicals, you are still going to have an issue. I do remember a company in Namibia who did organic devil's claw, and some of the harvesters used mosquito nets drenched in DDT to dry the devil's claw. And of course, although they thought they were certified, they never got the price premium. So all I'm trying to say is that, yeah, that is part of the process. And to me, what you really need to do before you start, make a simple risk analysis. Risk about the market. How sure is your confirmed order or your long-term orders? Can I really do the organic certification technically? Yeah. And also, how much control do you have? Devil's Claw, we go and train our harvesters. They go out and actually do the harvesting. They dry it in the houses. You are not there. Bottom line is that how much control do you have? If one harvester puts his devil's claw next to a bag of fertilizer or some dangerous chemical, you are not there. So you really need to make let's say, a risk management matrix to look at the risks, the likelihood they will happen, and the impact, and also the mitigation. Can you mitigate against us? And all, again, set it against potential benefits against cost. I think that is my last slide. Yeah, the last slide is, yeah, it shows you actually loading the devil's claw in a container and hopefully getting paid. And if that happens, I think, yeah, it's actually working out. I just try to explain that this whole process, there's a lot of things which can go wrong, but you really need to make an assessment before you start. I think that we as USA Trade Hub are always happy to assist companies, even if it comes to drafting an organic management plan. Yeah, we've done it. It's quite easy to change, let's say, Devil's Clause to Mongongo or whatever. I think with that, I end my presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Well done. This was really a very good introduction into the world of organic certification, from what you need to know when you want to certify in terms of the certification body and what is at stake, up to making an analysis whether it actually works for you. We are running late on this webinar, so therefore can I just quickly have a check-in with Francis or with USAID? How much time can we afford to questions, because we are exactly late for this half an hour, which would have been our question and answer time?
Thanks, Dagmar. I think it will be up to all of us to decide on how much more time we would want to put into this. I think the Q&A is very important. There are already questions in the chat, and I know that these presentations will lead to more questions. So I suggest, shall we do 20 minutes, which would take us to 4:30, and then we can quickly wrap up?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that guidance. Yes, the questions, of course, you can use also the chat forum for the questions. And the good thing with Teams is we are recording the session. So it will be made available on the USAID Sati Hub website, and also the presentations itself will be available. So if you think that you have been missing something, then please do also use the possibility to pose questions directly to the presenters or to USAID to assist you with the certain answers that you require for your business. In order to kick off the question and answer time, I would like to request, is there somebody who wants to take the starter? And if you're willing to take the starter, then please quickly introduce yourself. Just mention your name and your organization and the country from where you are joining, so that we can know who is speaking and what is your interest. Can we take the first one, please? Just put up your hand or switch on your mic so that we can go ahead. Okay, it seems that there are I don't see hands and I don't see first questions. I would then like to take, who's speaking, please?
Hello, this is Thandi Zulu from Blue Pride. Yeah, this is Thandi Zulu from Blue Pride, Botswana. After listening to this, it was very useful, but it is making me also get even more concerned, because I'm booked for an audit very soon, this coming in March. So I see now a lot of blanks, and I'm happy to hear that Gert is saying that we could actually approach USAID and also to give us help before that audit. Is that okay, what I understood properly, Gert?
I will answer that question, and the answer is a full yes. I mean, we are here to work with you, and yeah, you must have already made an organic management plan. If not, again, we can work with you. But I would say EcoCert is not your enemy. EcoCert is there to help you, and even I think they've never do an organic audit without any comment. They say, yeah, okay, there's always areas for immediate action, but that is normally if they're not too drastic, you can do that quite fast. I hope that answers your question, Thandi.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I see Johannes Kisaki. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Gerard's presentation was really an eye-opener for me, because I was thinking of this certification, organic certification, but I was not sure how to go about it. And then sitting here looking, I said, I deal with donkey milk products, both cosmetics and supplements. Now, raw donkey milk has got less bacteria in it than pasteurized cow milk. So even the cow milk that would be pasteurized being raw cow milk, has got more bacteria than raw donkey milk. So I think I will just stay with the raw donkey milk, unless the market dictates that I go that route. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Johannes, for that input. Yes, indeed, the issue around organic certification, it seems all very clear when you are ready to be inspected and audited. But the preparation time until you get there is actually the matter that makes it extremely difficult for people to decide whether they go forward or whether they should rather wait for them to be pushed to go forward. So are there any further questions from anybody? I would really like to entice you to ask those hard questions, and there are answers to it here, and the people are knowledgeable to assist.
Hello.
I don't immediately see your hand. Unless you can't show your hand, just go ahead, please, to pose your question.
Hello.
Maria?
Hi. Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot for the incredible presentations. That's really, how my previous speaker said, an eye-opening for me, because we just started. And yes, I'm Maria from Angola, and we're dealing with the baobab products. So we're producing the baobab powder, baobab oil, and baobab, all the line we can imagine from the fruits of the baobab. So if you can imagine that baobab are growing in different places of Angola, and how I heard on the presentation, we have to certify the villagers who are picking up products, and we are buying from the resellers, for example. How do we treat this? How we will have to go to the villages and make the training for the harvesters who are picking up the baobab fruits, and how do we deal with it? And that's a great question for us. And to make the trainers for the villagers, I don't know, can you share the experience of doing that, please? And that would be big help for us. Thank you very much.
Okay, Maria, have you posed your question to somebody specific? Or can I invite?
I don't know who can answer the question.
Okay, I see Daniel is ready to answer for you.
Okay, great.
Please go ahead, Daniel.
It's fine. Hi, Maria. Thanks for your question. It is, I see, first you just asked if we do certification in Angola.
Yes,
exactly. We do certification there. It's actually not our office that manages it, but we do have an EcoCert office in, I just can't remember whether it's Madagascar or Burkina Faso, which is responsible for Angola, but we definitely do have the capability of getting auditors there and doing the audit and the certification. That's not a problem. In terms of wild harvesting, and this is not with the specific case with baobab, it's with a lot of things also, like Gerrit and Chris also both mentioned, and I really enjoyed their presentations. I think it was really valuable for people wanting to certify, really seeing the true reflection of what it is on the client side. And also with regards to Gerrit's case, really crucially important to make sure that it makes business sense. So for us as well, from our side, the most important thing for us is that people farm sustainable and that we promote sustainable food. Certification is something that's a reward for you if you can obviously make it business-wise, if you can make sense of it to get a premium for your product. So to get back to your question, it doesn't always make sense that you've got this big wild harvesting area, and logically there's no way that these areas can be contaminated. It's difficult to because some of these guys they've been picking up whether it's baobab or marula. They've been doing this for a long time. So to try and think how do we really train these guys is sometimes difficult. But
Exactly.
yes, but
Exactly.
there's certain steps within certification that you can't get around. So even if logic tells you that these areas are definitely non-treated, we would still need to have like the speakers also mentioned, you would need a letter from either a local chief or a government authority to say that these areas are under our management and it hasn't been treated, because you get areas where there's sometimes DDT treatment, or there's areas where there's conventional farming that's taking place. So that's the risk that we try to avoid. In some cases, the auditors can also see, the risk is very low. These areas are vast areas which is wild, and the risk is quite low. And then in terms of training as well, I mean, the training doesn't have to be a very complex thing. It can be the basics to say that we do organic certification. In the one hand, to show these guys that there's no chemicals on the product, it's for their health, but also to show them that we're doing, if it's baobab fruit that you're harvesting, to say that the baobab that we harvest, we do it in a sustainable way. So to make sure you have a plan set up, to also show that the baobabs that's harvested, you harvest these in a way where baobab trees can still replenish itself and they would still be able to grow. You're not coming in and stripping all of the baobab trees from all of the fruit.
Okay.
So this is, but that's the basics. But I hope I answered your question, Maria.
Yeah, but if we're buying from resellers, do we have to go to the end to go to the villages and to show all the line, or how do we do it?
With resellers, it's difficult because actually the standard doesn't allow resellers. If you want a reseller in the system, it means that the reseller would actually need to be certified in itself, because what this reseller is doing is he's buying from a harvester and he's selling the product on. So this person or this entity would then need a separate certification. So it's really difficult to, you can have a system like that, but it would mean that this person, or at least that everyone under this person that is buying from, is on the harvester list, and there's proper traceability as well, that you know where these fruits are coming from which harvester. It's not possible to buy to just buy a bulk product from these resellers without knowing where it comes from, even if it's obvious that it's from a specific region. In terms of certification, it's not possible.
Okay, I got it. So we have to review the whole model. Okay, thanks a lot for the answer. Yeah, and just one more question.
Thank you, thank you, Maria.
Just one,
I see there are other hands also. Maria, can you place maybe your question in the chat so that we give others also a chance?
Great,
Okay, thanks, Maria. I see Denise, who has put up her hand. Denise, please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Maybe this question was asked and I missed it, but I just want to make sure. I own a cosmetics brand, a skincare and a wellness brand. So I'm not a grower. I will buy my raw materials from somebody, say an organically certified supplier. What must I do then to get organic certification for my brands?
Okay, Denise, thank you very much for that question. Today we did focus the organic certification on the ingredients, everything that you can certify in leading up to your product. We did not focus so much the presentation on organic or natural certification for end products. But I think here in this case, Daniel can quickly just highlight what are the steps to be done. You did allude in your presentation towards the natural and organic certification under COSMOS, which is the end product certification for these labels, just to highlight. But I think in another chance, we will definitely have to also focus a presentation or webinar on end product certifications. Please help us here, Daniel.
Sure. Just in quick, Denise, you there's not much difference. Obviously, the farming or the wild harvesting is not going to be applicable to you. You will then only be classified as in this case as a handler, or if it's the cosmetic certification, it would be a brand holder. And what the audit, it's a shorter audit. Obviously, there's not going to be traveling to the site. So all the auditor would do is to check the certificates, the validity of the certificates of your suppliers, and to also then make sure that the products that you are buying, the raw materials you're buying, if you're doing the processing or if you're using a subcontractor, that the subcontractor is certified or inspected, and that the amounts that you buy in of raw materials compared to the amount of organic products that you're selling, that balances out, and it makes sense that there's not a, you're buying in 10 tons of raw material that's organic, and you're selling 20 tons of final product that's organic. So that would mean somewhere there was conventional product added. But it's not a complex and a difficult audit. It's literally just going through processing and making sure everything is separated and there's good traceability.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Is there another hand? Is there another question? A burning question? Daniel, then I would like to ask, because this is what traditionally happens when one is considering organic certification. What organic certification cannot do for somebody or for an enterprise? Tris has mentioned some of it, and Jared has also mentioned some of it in terms of the business case. But we get these questions very often, that the organic certification is made synonymous with regulatory requirements, say, for example, the EU market or the US market or the UK market, what have you. And also, then it is equalized with, I'm selling a quality product. So can you maybe just quickly highlight for us what organic certification cannot attest and cannot do?
Okay, so interesting question. I think the thing that organic certification, the most important thing that organic certification cannot do is it does not necessarily market itself. So like Gerrit also said, being certified organic doesn't automatically mean you are going to be selling more product or that you're going to be selling your product at a premium price. This depends on your company's efforts to market and to find specific markets for this. So to make sure that there's a real need for an organic certified equivalent product. So an example of this would be, for instance, for Moringa. I know for quite a few years the market was in a way, there was a lot of Moringa producers, conventional Moringa producers, but there was quite a big gap in terms of certified organic Moringa. There was not a lot of that going around. So there was a big increase in Southern Africa of the amount of certified organic Moringa producers to really meet this demand. So that's really the first thing. And then the second thing as well is organic certification. Also, where Gerrit mentioned, for instance, that they got contamination on the product, it doesn't really mean that, you know, we are 100% certain that this product would be clean. Because what happens is we have an audit. The audit is a snapshot, 1 day or 2 days or 3 days of really what's happening throughout the year. We say, according to what we've seen in the documents we go through, they comply to the organic standards, but we can never completely say that, you know, this product is completely chemical free. So you still have the risk of your product being tested either by the auditors of EcoCert or by clients on the other side, which could then lead to an investigation by the certification body and to possibly also to a downgrade of the product to conventional status. And then just lastly on this point, also just to add that a lot of people confuse the certification body's function as well, thinking that the one thing I mentioned was that the certification body is going to market your product, which is not the case. We would love to do that, but this is not the focus of our job. And then the second thing as well is we cannot do consulting. So we really try to guide and to help our clients to understand the standards, but we can't, you know, create documents for you and create procedures for you. We are the ones to check those procedures and to check if you are compliant, but we also cannot be the ones that consult you on these matters, because that is quite an obvious conflict of interest at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel, for that explanation. I particularly asked this because this leads up also, and we have come unfortunately to the end of our question and answer time, but this leads up also to the question that many of at least the Nancy members have is, okay, so I want to get my product organically certified. Number one, I don't know whom to ask, and number two, I don't know how to get prepared. So with today's presentation focused on when you have taken the decision that you want to get your products organically certified, and when you are prepared to go and approach somebody like a certification body like EcoCert, but there is still a lot of preparation that needs to be done, like Daniel has explained, and also Gerrit and Tris have explained, that all those conditions need to be met by the time that you have decided that you want to contact a certification body. So I would like to hand over to Francis now to help us on how do we get prepared for organic certification and all those other inputs in order to help our business export, while there is always the regulatory requirements that need to be fulfilled when you want to shelf a product and when you want to put something onto the shelf, that you need to meet all these other standards that are following, like organic, like Cosmos, like Fair for Life, or what. They are complementary and they are voluntary. But those regulations, you have to meet them. So thank you very much, Francis. So please help us further from here.
Great. Thank you very much, Dagmar, and thank you to all of our speakers. It's not just about the time and the incredible insights and experiences that you've shared with us today. It's also been the prep leading up to this, for which we are very grateful. I love the different practical examples that we had from both DLG and Matabeleland Milling, and also the clear direction from Daniel in terms of the different standards and how they work. So just a few sort of closing comments from me. I'd first actually like to introduce Warwick Blamey. He's going to do a very short update in terms of what's happening on the African Trade Platform. The African Trade Platform is a key partner of ours that helps to unlock opportunities for companies that we work with in terms of trade and trade finance. So I'm going to first ask Warwick just to quickly share a few updates and present the African Trade Platform to you. And then it won't be more than a couple of minutes, 5 minutes. And then I will share a few housekeeping and closing remarks after that and address Dagmar's question. Thanks very much. Over to you, Warwick.
Great. Thanks very much, Francis. Good afternoon to everyone. I've been enjoying the talk so far. We've actually gone through the EcoCert process with Daniel on one of our subsidiaries a few years ago. So, just from personal experience, you're in good hands with him with the process on that side. Just to give you an update on African Trade Platform, where we obviously link buyers and sellers of various products throughout sub-Saharan Africa and the rest of the world. Part of the support services of ATP, which is African Trade Platform, is the trade finance portion of the actual business and offering that we have for various suppliers and buyers. So in a case where you've got a niche product, it's a lot of participants on the platform have assumed that the trade finance is only for your larger transactions and your commoditized products such as maize, wheat, chrome, it's anything on the commodity side, but that's not true at all. If you're a supplier and you have a buyer, so let's say you supplying a smaller niche product and you have a buyer on the international market, once you've got an invoice from that buyer itself, we'll then vet the buyer. So we won't do the vetting on yourselves. The vetting will take place on the buyer of that product, and if the creditworthiness of the actual buyer ticks the boxes from our side, we would then be able to finance that invoice. So if their terms are that they pay, for an example, in 90 days on invoice, we would then discount that invoice and be able to pay you those funds up front, so you wouldn't have to wait for that 90-day period, which then allows you to inject that capital back into the business, which assists from a cash flow perspective. So if there is anyone that's requiring cash flow, that's have various terms with buyers, it doesn't have to be on the international stage. So excuse me, it can be local.
I think we've lost Warwick. But what I can say is if you are interested in African Trade Platform, I'm sure you've heard us mention it before, you can reach out to your country representative, and I'll pop those details up on the screen just after this. Warwick, are you back? I don't see.
Sorry guys, I've got so there's a fly that flew into my throat. So from that perspective, if there is anyone that's looking for trade finances to free up that working capital, it doesn't have to be international transactions. It can be within country. You can contact us through the African Trade Platform. Thank you.
Thanks, Warwick, and thanks for joining us today to share about this opportunity. So if I can just jump back to Dagmar's earlier question about how could the USA Trade Hub assist companies, I think what's very key is that if you are ready to undergo an audit, we can support a cost share of up to 60% in terms of the actual audit itself. We only have a few months left of implementation. I think many of you know that we're a 6-year program and we're closing out our activities in June. So if you are, close to undergoing your audit, a bit like Thandi, and you can get through everything that's required by June, then we can assist in terms of some of those costs. In terms of support with the areas that Gerrit touched on, I think the best point of contact would be to reach out to your country rep, so either Tanya or Gerrit, and we will lean on Gerrit given his experience with going through this in Matabeleland milling in terms of some practical guidance and assistance. Then Yemi did mention at the beginning that we are recording the session and that the presentations will be shared. So the recording will be available on our website, which is there, satihub.com, if you want to go and listen to some of these presentations again. And then you can also expect to receive the presentations from us before the end of the week. Give it a day or so for the presentation or the recording to be saved, because we just do a little bit of cleaning up before we upload it. Then just to introduce our different country reps. If you don't know your country rep, oh, my apologies, wrong slide. Upcoming events. We've got a couple of events in Botswana, one tomorrow. Gerrit's got his hands full. We've got a regional cross-border trade toolkit, training of trainer workshop. We had a similar workshop in Namibia last week or the week before. So all the best with that. It's really all around the different processes and procedures that firms need to know about when trading with South Africa. It gets into the nitty-gritty of what you need to know in terms of Incoterms and contracting and moving products across the border. Then we have an important 2-day workshop with the Botswana AGOA Steering Committee next week. And that's really to identify partners that can come on board to work with the committee to drive different elements of their export master plan. And then we have an exporting to the United States webinar. So if you've got an interest in the US, we've got a number of different trade promotion service providers based in the US that will be presenting different types of entry points into the US market for different types of firms in different sectors. And that's on the 23rd of February. Again, with all of these opportunities, please reach out to your country reps. There's Tanya's details, Tanya Doringo for Namibia, and Gerrit Streif for Botswana, and Maria, I think for Angola, you know already, but it's been Nelly. You can reach out to Nelly. With that, I can't thank our speakers enough for the rich nuggets and practical insights into going through this. We will continue to work with NPAB and Nancy in terms of this ongoing engagement with all of you. And a big thank you to Nancy and NPAB for taking the lead on this, for really partnering with USA Trade Hub to make this event a success, and for all of your input and time today. Have a lovely afternoon, everyone. And please reach out to us if you've got any questions that were unanswered. Thanks.